Welcome to the Thresholds of Reality, the podcast where we explore unexplained and mysterious events, phenomena, and legends. Today we're joined by Orlee Stewart. She's a witch, a Gnostic Bishop, an exorcist, and demon summoner. She's just controlling all of the supernatural things in her vicinity. So strap in as we explore the edges of the unknown. Orlee, thank you for joining us this wonderful afternoon. We have been exploring recently demonology, and we've been talking to many people on various sides of demons, and there's some anti-demon folks. We spoke to a guy a couple weeks ago who contracts with demons, but he doesn't trust them. Where do you sit on the demon debate?
Wow, that's an exciting question. Well, I work with all different kinds of spirits in my practice. However, my specialty is with Solomonic magic. And as the legends go, King Solomon worked with the demons to help build his great temple. So I like to view these spirits from that type of perspective where even though, of course, they have qualities about them that are beyond our ability to understand because it's non-human, they have abilities to help people in certain ways, but of course you have to be careful. So I think that's probably my best response to that.
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating field, and we've spent probably how many weeks on this one, Kyle? Maybe 4 or 5 weeks. We've been exploring the idea of demonology, exorcism, demon contracts, things like that. But I'm always fascinated to learn how somebody decides they get into it.
Yeah. Well, for myself personally, it was never a conscious choice. I've always been a creative person, and I wanted to do that as my method of life. And this just basically happened because of over time, I started having very strange paranormal experiences ever since I was a child. And I found myself in all different sorts of circumstances to learn more about witchcraft and magic and how to be less afraid of having those experiences. And I guess I'm just the type of person where people would come to me and ask me for help with these type of situations, and over time it developed into working professionally as a witch here in New Orleans. Now I work primarily online, but being in New Orleans has also really helped me learn a lot more about witchcraft and magic and being in a really spiritual place too. But the spirits basically brought me into this path. It wasn't a choice. Like I never wanted to be a witch. I was born having strange experiences happen to me, and then I wanted to empower myself. And through what I would call fate, I suppose, I found myself meeting people that were in different occult orders from when I was a teenager. And that's how I learned about ceremonial magic and the arts of conjuring different spirits, the magic of Aleister Crowley, and different methods of evocation of all different sorts of spirits. And it wasn't until over 7 years into that I actually got into actually summoning demons in the first place. And I did it out of a curiosity, and I think that is like that with a lot of people. But I've always had experiences with the darker aspects of the paranormal. I think it's probably just part of who I am and how it comes to me, and it reaches out to me for help, especially in particular the spirits of the dead reach out to me very frequently for help. And all of these things go together because the world of the demons is also connected to, of course, the underworld, the chthonic, it's the sublunar. So these are the things that are in the shadows in other dimensions that leak into our own, and often they can be intermixed or cross over into one another. And so through the spirits reaching out to me to help them, like for example with the dead, I would have dreams about people that I was able to verify were actually real, and then help them to essentially, I guess, cross over by having going about certain things in the dreams, helping them clean up their stuff, things like that, and then also doing literal ritual blessings and helping to elevate these spirits. So even though I do work mostly with demons, I'm not that much of a dark person. So I really am trying to go with the ideas where a lot of these spirits, if we look back on the history, they can be connected to the Babylonian exile and how many of them often could be ancient gods. Not all of them, but some of them are. And to take everything with a bit of a grain of salt. But I'm always really careful in the work that I do and what I try to advise people with. I started getting into it in a, I guess, a naive way, I suppose, because I had like an ex-boyfriend who had treated me really badly, and then I wanted to, protect myself from him. And so I didn't really know what I was doing or what I was getting myself into with the actual demonology, because I had already been summoning spirits for a long time and asking them for help. And I just so happened to meet people that were summoning demons. I found some classes back when I lived in Canada that were being held at the bookstore. Us occultists would put on like different classes with stuff we had learned from books. This was a lot before people were putting content on YouTube. So it was quite some time ago. So it was pretty interesting. So I found people that summon demons, and I was like, hey, can you help me with this? And that's how I learned about it, I guess. Yeah.
Well, so you said that you started in kind of a naive place, that you exercise a lot of caution. What are some of the things that you've learned about the risks that are associated with dealing with demons?
Oh yeah. So even before then, I had gone through what I would describe as no less as completely insane experiences of people that had been possessed by spirits, where my own life was very, very much in danger. So I have seen how when people don't know what they're doing and call upon through rituals, whatever to come through, that it actually is devastating to themselves and those around them. And that was when I first started getting more into exorcism, because I was trying to help that person, and I was utilizing the knowledge I had from ceremonial magic to do like banishing rituals on him and to try to get him to stop. But yeah, so I've seen it. Like for me, these things aren't a fantasy, and I've witnessed things that are stranger than what you could think of in a movie. I've seen people fly up into the air and throw themselves into pieces of furniture, jumping in and out of windows. I've seen people's eyes glow with fire, things that are really horrific to actually behold. And luckily, those things are very, very rare. And so I have that as how I first started experiencing these kind of darker aspects of magic, because I was also around people that were like 20 years older than me back in the day when I was doing that. So they had lots and lots of experience. There were people from occult orders. They had all these books on the dark arts. And so they knew what they were doing. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And so that really made me realize like this stuff is very, very serious. But there's also aspects of it when you actually are doing things in accordance to the formulas that have been collected and treasured by royalty, collectors, in the British Museum, all these wonderful grimoires that actually give you very helpful instructions on how to work with these spirits. So there's actually systems that you can follow where you can be careful and plan your rituals from a scientific approach. And so after witnessing those things, which in the past, which I would call like reckless, careless, experimental demonology practices, where it really truly was matters of life and death. That got me into learning more about the formulas and how to actually do these things properly, because those aren't the same spirits that help people. It's not the same. It's very easy to have some kind of like low level spirit that's just going to mess up your life come through if you start dabbling in magic and trying to summon demons if you don't know what you're doing.
The effort to reach out to spirits kind of then led you into reaching out to more darker figures. What way do you find that to be useful to you or to your clients?
Well, in a lot of ways, because in magic, well, first of all, what's important to think about is the classification of what are these darker figures is very dependent on how the literature was categorized and put together. So, for example, in other Solomonic texts, so not in the ones that are about the demons that people know about, like the Ars Goetia, the Lemegeton, the Lesser Key of Solomon, there's other books, like, for example, in the what's known as the Greater Key of Solomon, which contains angelic spirits that are planetary spirits. That grimoire also refers to those spirits as demons. So it becomes kind of confusing, and I think it's better to kind of qualify the definition. When I'm talking about helpful demons, it could be a lot of different kinds of spirits that I suppose get demonized by literature through time. And also a lot of these things were put in various doctrine to protect them so that the text wouldn't be destroyed over time. So like enshrouded in other religious texts or demonized with warnings. Like if we look at, for example, the Pseudomonarcha Daemonum, it says that like, oh, these demons, obviously I'm just paraphrasing, but like it says like all these demons are really dangerous, like don't ever work with them, but here's a list of all of them and what they do. And so it's interesting because it's like, well, we're giving you the information, but don't do it. And so this is what I mean about like, just as a side tangent before I answer the question directly. So what's to benefit? Well, in spiritual practices, we can do more to help the world and our community if we have things like material resources to help ourselves. And the demonic spirits are really good at helping people with the material realm. So like money stuff, bringing in love, comforts. When you're comfortable, it can help you make your world around you better. So that's one aspect of it. But another huge aspect of the benefit of working with darkness is that you've probably heard about the term shadow work, where when we face these things that are scary, it helps us to go through a personal evolution within ourselves to discover what we can work on in ourselves. And that overall helps us to evolve as people and spiritually. I think a big part of it for me is realizing like everything is connected. So a lot of these spirits are entities from previous traditions and cultures that were demonized over time, and they actually have a lot of things that they can help people with. So moving, like you could call upon a demon to help you to find a new place to live. Like there's so many different things that you could do with demons that you could also call upon an angelic spirit or a planetary spirit to help you with, but the methodology in which you would do such rituals is different. So with, for example, with the demons, it's like a bit of a bartering system, and the demons like to experience the human world through us. And so, also, it's really important for me to say I don't do things that are I don't do things that are evil, and I don't think that the real application of the darkness is something that is evil, because evil comes from, in many cases, like humans being hateful to one another and the environment. And that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about demons. So I just for people out there like that are watching, it has to do with liberation, and how when we work with these spirits, they teach us that we have access to magic, to power within our own selves that society or other belief systems don't want people to know about or have access to. Now, on the other hand, just because a demon can help you to do something doesn't mean that you should do it. It doesn't mean that you should. Like, just because magic exists to do all kinds of things doesn't mean that it's a good idea to actually go and do those things. So you really have to use your own judgment. And that's where doing things like the work on your own shadows that comes with working with the darkness comes up, where it's like having us examine aspects of our own selves. And that, of course, helps us in our own spiritual practices as well. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it does. It also brings up a lot more. So when you're talking about demons helping with the material realm, like what are some of the ways that you engage with a demon in order for them to help you or to help your clients?
Yeah, so there are different rituals that can be done, and the method that I do goes through traditional Solomonic magic that has been changed slightly to fit more contemporary um, situations, because in a lot of those grimoires, it calls for things that are just unrealistic to have, like the skin of certain animals or things like that, like that I wouldn't have. But those things actually represent what a priest used to wear back in those days. So you basically have to analyze the text and then think, well, what would a contemporary person do? Like, what is the version of this? So you go through a whole series of different prayers and ritual invocations, and they're done at certain times that are calculated based on the lunar phases, and then also depending on what spirit you are calling, they have different elements that they're associated with. So the demonic kings are associated to the sun. So with those, when I work with them, I use seals that I've made out of gold, because that's the metal associated with the sun. A lot of these associations are through what's known as the King's Scale in the Golden Dawn system of magic, where there's attributions of different colors to different planets as they appear on the Tree of Life. And so the demons are also corresponding to this system. And so with that, I have different items that I've made for the different spirits. So there's a lot of prep work that's done to conjure them. It's done at particular times. And then the way that I was taught to do it is I ask the spirit, what would you like in return for helping me or for helping this person? And it's never going to ask me something that is like disturbing or messed up, because that's not these kind of spirits. Like I said, I don't like these spirits help people like get a new job. Like it's not like something evil. And that's the main thing, because you could even do evil magic if you were summoning angels. Like it's not the same. So that's also really important for people to think about. If the spirits are trying to get you to do something that is breaking the law or hurting yourself or other people, that's not these powerful demons, because they have better things to do than that. These are spirits that are trying to help progress the evolution of humanity, because like I said, most of them were ancient gods from other cultures. So with that being said, the spirit will tell me psychically what it would like. Often I'll see a scenario in my psychic vision of something like some flowers being dropped into the sea or some fruits being left outside or something like that. And then I'll go ahead and do that in exchange for the demon helping. With other spirits, it doesn't have that kind of like bartering aspect. You just basically hope that they're going to help you. So that's a another reason like why people would want to work with demons. But it's not really. I would say it's not good to really work with demons if you're in a desperate situation as well, because it takes time.
Okay. Do they tend to take advantage of people in desperate situations?
People in desperate situations can make mistakes in what they're doing. So these spirits, the only time I've seen these spirits take advantage of people is when people have taken their own spin on it. And what I mean by that is I've seen them take advantage of people when someone gets an idea about this spirit and says like, "Oh, this spirit is like dangerous and a bad guy." And they really focus on that aspect of the demon and really kind of tell everyone that, oh, this spirit is dangerous, but also work with the spirit on that one facet of it. So you could even look at this like if this was a person, like it would not feel good to have people focus on only one aspect of things that you do. That's probably like not the best aspect of you when you can do all kinds of blessings and help people in many different ways, but they're only focusing on one thing. So I've seen people get taken advantage of by those spirits where it's like, oh, well, if you perceive me to be this terror, then I'm going to flip on you and show you what that really is truly like. But it's only when it's approached in that sort of way, or when people think that they know better than grimoires that have been preserved and handed down for hundreds of years, where it says things like, oh, if you're going to work with this particular demon, you need to write this certain magical formula around it, or give a certain kind of like give a candle offering to it, or else it will lie to you, for example. There is a symbol that is often seen in like all over called the Triangle of Solomon. That's, you know, the triangle that people will summon a demon inside. And around the triangle, it says different magical names: anaphaxaton, prineumaton, tetragrammaton. Those are to help the spirit's energy be contained and connected in one place. And it also surrounds it with these blessed names. So the spirit is not going to lie to you. And I've seen people who disregard those things get lied to by the spirits and taken advantage of for sure. But yeah, that's the main thing.
All right. So I want to back up to a phrase that you've used a couple times, Solomonic magic, and referring to King Solomon from Old Testament days. What is the source that you use to understand Solomonic magic? It's clearly the Bible that we use today doesn't have a lot on Solomon's magic and his interactions with demons. So where's that text? Is it a text? Is it, oral history that's being passed down? How are you accessing that information?
Yeah, absolutely. So for what it's worth, I am Jewish. I grew up in schools where they taught us how to read Hebrew, so that was a big advantage to that. In terms of like there being a literal book written by King Solomon that's like some kind of biblical book. Such a thing doesn't exist. There are books that reference the magic of King Solomon. So, 1001 Arabian Nights, that lore is a huge aspect of it.
Mm.
But then also we can look at it from a series of grimoires that have these lists of demons that over hundreds of years you can see how one book has the same list of demons and then it was transferred to another book like I was mentioning. So the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is also known as the Lemegeton, that one is one of the more newer books. It's not actually new, but it's one of the newest ones. And then you can trace it back to other places in the world. So in France, there's a lot of those drawings of the demons that comes from books that are the same list of demons. And so there seems to have been a tradition of listing a grouping of demons, saying what they do, and then providing certain symbols that represent them. That has been recorded in different books through history over time. And then they've mostly been collected by the British Museum. And so the Pseudomonarchium Daemonum is one of the earlier versions of it. That one doesn't have the symbols for the demons, and these are medieval manuscripts. So there is no biblical text or even apocryphal biblical text that's really about this kind of stuff. And but I mean, we do have the legends of King Solomon and Bathsheba, where she's presumed to be a demon, and then he does these different tests on her to see if she's a demon or not. So there's different Bible stories that kind of like hint at these things, but there isn't really any actual biblical text about it.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, is that there's not biblical text. So the source of it is from other contemporaneous sources.
Well, medieval manuscripts that give the list of these demons.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm like just trying to track it.
Oh yeah, I would say like it's hard to find any kind of materials on it like before the 1400s, the 1300s.
Okay, so it's still, I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah,
it's like 1,000 years, right?
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's not like just contemporary stuff, but the contemporary stuff is completely, like, a lot of it is completely different than traditional ritual formula, and that's where people run into a lot of problems, because this stuff is complicated to do. Like, you have to go and do all these elaborate things to conjure the demons in a way where they're actually going to listen to you and help you. But when you do things in ways that are like made to be easy, that's when people run into a lot of problems.
When they try and take shortcuts, you mean?
Yeah.
So in your work doing, your website lists you, or the name of your website is motherofabominations.com, right?
Yeah.
And what was the reason behind that name?
Oh, sure. So Mother of Abominations is a reference to Babylon from the Book of Revelation, who is a spiritual figure that Aleister Crowley turned into a goddess icon, essentially, where she represents feminine empowerment.
So is that basically the message that you're trying to convey? Is, this is about empowering and overcoming the world? What's the message you're trying to convey in your work?
I am trying to show people that the spirit world is real, and I try to help people and counsel them through the situations that they have by trying to make their life have better energy in it, basically. I do a lot of work with succubus spirits for people. So I try to help people have spirits that are going to be loving unto them in their lives, that are helpful, like spirit companions. And it's like, I use these terms like succubus spirit and demon because this is what people like know of things as in contemporary society. But like when you get in deeper, it's not really that, but that's just how I like to categorize things because that's how I reach out to people. um, but yeah, I'm trying to help people to see that the spirit world is real, and if they need help, I'm there for them. But then also, the website was initially just my paintings, so I do a lot of surreal, weird, like creatures and entities from paranormal visions and things like that. So those were like the abominations, I
Okay.
suppose. Yeah.
So the issue that I guess I'm trying to get at is, are
Mm.
there any moments in your work, in your practice, that kind of stand out to you as extraordinary, and maybe moments that you're really proud of?
Wow. Well, I try to not share things that are about like work that I've done with other people too much. But I did something with my partner last week that I'm pretty proud of because it was something we had never tried to do before. And we were contacted by my friends in the band called the Dead Milkmen, and they were doing a concert at a cemetery, and it was calling for rain. And so my friend Rodney from the band contacted me and asked like if I could help him do a spell so it wouldn't rain. And I I was like I could try, but I've never done something like this before, and it worked. And so that was really cool. And In terms of things like that, I'm really proud of. I've seen people. I've done pacts with people. So, for example, a lot of the times, people will ask me to help them with rituals if they don't have the ability to do it for themselves. I'm always going to try to encourage someone to learn how to do it for yourself because that way you really understand what it is, and then you can fully make these choices to be going through this. Not everyone has the ability to do that. So I had a client who called on to me for help, and this is someone who is later in life, and she already has like a whole full life that she's lived, and she was able to completely switch her whole career path around, getting new jobs, going back to school, like all of these new things, completely changing her whole life around. Even her husband wasn't accepting of like her spiritual beliefs, and we also asked the spirits to help her so she would have more acceptance, and like now she can have like her books out and all these things. And so yeah, it was that's one of the, like those little things are the things that I'm the most proud of. um i I do things that are like, in people's personal lives.
Right.
Typically, a lot of it is people are having maybe a lot of negative energy around them and they need me to help clear it away because it's like I'll summon the demons, but also I can get them to go away. So yeah, that's all in the exorcism aspect of it, right? Because very often, I would say most of the people that need that are people who have come to me after doing some kind of reckless demon magic, and they don't really know what they did exactly, and they need help in cleaning that up.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like what you're talking about, shadow work, right? Is where you're trying to connect with kind of someone's dark side. Is that right?
Well, that's the person. That's the. I would say that's more like the psychological, personal work that we do is the shadow work. What I'm talking about is literally doing rituals to cleanse the energy,
Right.
banish stuff away. Yeah. The shadow work is more like, like your own psychological betterment work that you do on yourself.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Versus actually dealing with darker entities.
Yeah, versus like getting in the circle and like doing a spell. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if like what if someone is interested in reaching you or contacting you because they may be dealing with something of their own, what's a case that you would seem or that would seem to you to be like an ideal case for you to handle?
Well, every day, basically, I have people come to me where they are having some experience of some sort of strange paranormal thing is happening to them. Maybe they're having a lot of nightmares, or they're actually having paranormal phenomenon happen to them, and they need guidance to know like what's happening. Um, Basically, like what is happening to me? Why am I having these weird dreams? Or someone who has done a spell and then all of a sudden all this bad stuff's happening to them and they don't know why. That's my
So it might be someone who like
yeah.
you started out with a little bit too much naivety and lack of caution and then got themselves into trouble.
Yeah. And I love helping people like that because I can really relate to it and understand like, how this all happens. And I have seen the light at the end of the tunnel, just as I have seen like people's lives be completely destroyed by witchcraft when they don't know what they're doing. And it's something I take extremely seriously. So I'm always happy to help people if they're willing to hear advice from someone else to be like, hey, like maybe you shouldn't have done this that way, or maybe you shouldn't have done that, or some whatever it is.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, so what does it mean to be a bishop or Gnostic bishop? That was another part of your bio that I was fascinated by.
Yeah, so I was consecrated as a bishop through the lineage of the wandering bishops when I lived in California. And I'm through the lineage of people. The idea is we want to help share spiritual current. So it was given to me because I was part of a bunch of different occult organizations, and I was serving as a novitiate priestess. I was an officer in all these different occult orders and stuff. And then when I started stepping away from it, another person who had also stepped away from those things that had received these blessings decided to go ahead and then give them to me, because the idea is we can then help other people. Like if they really want the current, we can give that to them, to help spread it so other people can have the same kind of spiritual authority. And it really does make a huge difference in your magic. It's a lot to take on, because I definitely wouldn't suggest someone undertake getting consecrated as a bishop unless it is completely serious. It's also it's not something that's just like willy-nilly. Like if somebody were to contact me about it and just try to get that from me, I'm not going to say yes, because it needs to be somebody that I know that is going to take this seriously. Because if you don't, your spiritual accountability gets cranked up to the max, man. Like when you have that kind of ordination put upon you. So it's the same lineage as all the wandering bishops. So while not being actually recognized by the Catholic Church, I technically have the same lineage of that, which also helps me in my spirituality and helping heal people too. So yeah, it was kind of interesting how it happened. But yeah, it happened to me because I was going rogue, trying to get away from the oppression of being in different occult groups, because very often they can be like glorified cults. And so when I got away from that, it was like essentially recognized by other people in the community, and they wanted to give me the spiritual authority that if I would have stayed in those groups, I would have probably never been able to make it up that high because of like what you have to go through, which is like ridiculous stuff, to have that. So
to kind of advance.
Mhm.
Okay. And how does that ordination play into the services that you provide or the work that you do now?
Well, it gives me more spiritual authority. So when I'm conjuring any kind of spirit, I can make my own holy water. I can help people if their loved one has passed away as a priest, as clergy. And so it it basically has me wearing like multiple hats at the same time, where I'm helping people as a witch, but then like I'm also clergy at the same time. So I try to help people in their own spiritual journey. But it gets complicated because I'm working with so many different aspects of magic. And while that might seem like this whole thing might seem very, very strange to a lot of people in America, but in other cultures, witches work with all the different things in spirituality all together, especially south of the border. Like it's witches work with everything. It's not just one thing or another. That's why like I'm definitely not like a left hand path magician, or like as some people call it, like a black magician. I'm just a witch, but I work with all these different kinds of forces. Um, because a lot of them represent the people that are oppressed, and I am very much someone that is of the current of like helping liberate people and helping people come into their own spiritual power to discover who they are and how every one of us is connected to everything around us. That's basically how it's all come together. Whereas like in witches, you could you could be doing any kind of magic. Like there's no rules of what types of spells you would do for people. But because I'm also clergy, I really take a big personal accountability in making sure that I'm going to guide people in the right way, in a way where it's going to make their, and by the right way, I don't mean like in a subservient way to something or some force, but in a way where like it's going to make their life better, not just to do whatever. Because like even just, I guess a literal example is I don't do spells that cause harm to people for hire. And I also don't do spells that um, are like a love spell focused on one particular person, because there's a lot of that. Like there's a lot of people who want that want like an ex back or something. And so that's something that I don't do, because that falls under the category of just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should. And in the past, I have done that. And you know what? I personally didn't feel good about it. And at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to live with myself. So I would rather try to help people like to make their life better, because as clergy, it really becomes very serious on me, like everything I do.
Yeah, the law of unintended consequences. It's a lesson that they learned in Jurassic Park very well.
Yeah.
and so the thing that I'm seeing is that you seem to have connections to a lot of camps in the paranormal realms. Do you ever find yourself at odds with these different factions or different magics or tools at your disposal? Do they ever kind of create conflict in your life?
I love that question. And so the answer to that is yes, I did. So my partner and I, so we had to reorganize how all the altars and everything was in our apartment, because things were getting way too jumbled up and confusing from all the different types of magic and spirit work that we do. So we ended up putting different groupings of, like, we had one room that was the whole spirit room, but it was just way too much, and we even had to step back from doing a few different other types of spiritual work that we were doing just to know exactly like what is happening, what is contacting me, what is going on. Because yeah, like when you have your finger in like every pie or whatever, you don't know what is causing what, and so that becomes super confusing. So we put all of our stuff, to the spirits of the dead, and in one room, and then our ancestors are in a different room, and then all the demonic stuff is in here. So we have divided it up a lot better, because before we had it all together in one of the rooms, and everything just kind of became chaos from that. And yeah, I also, just as a fun story, when I first started getting into summoning demons for the first time, so this was over 10 years ago, I was living with a guy who had summoned a demon with his ex-girlfriend, and it went awry. And so what the two of them had done was, for some reason, they had used a rock to summon the demon, which was kind of bizarre. And also, like I was saying, not a normal way to do it. So you're already setting it up for some weird thing to happen. So they had summoned it into this rock, and then they had put it in like a metal lunchbox. I think it was some kind of metal box. Okay. And he was afraid of the box. And so I was like, okay, the box can stay in my room. And then he's had this box for a really long time. And it's a sealed box, okay? I have a friend over, my friend Jenna. And Jenna, hi, if you're watching. We were over. I started telling her about the box and like this whole crazy story about like how they summoned this demon and it went out of hand and they didn't know what to do. So they tried to trap it into this box, and he's been carrying that freaking box around with him for, years and years, sealed up in there. I start telling her the story. I kid you not, scratching starts coming from the inside of the box in the room. And, that guy is dead for what it's worth. And so that's he. And the last time I had seen him after I had moved was he had been talking about wanting to open the box and release it. So I don't know what actually happened with that. Maybe if anyone knows, they can fill me in if you know what I'm talking about. This is from 10 years ago. So that was truly bizarre. So things like that, like the literal synchronicities of things that respond to what you're doing and saying, it happens so often the more you get into magic that I tend to not make like that much of a record of it, because I suppose I'm truly humbled by these things constantly. But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's great. All right, as we are getting ready to wrap up, I do want to share your, get you on the homepage here first, and then share your website, and then also, so this, it looks like you performing a ritual, surrounded by some candles and some books, and I'm not sure what's happening here, but it looks fascinating.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've always done that made people start watching my YouTube channel and kind of see me as being taboo is I record videos of me doing my rituals. And when I started doing that like 10, 15 years ago, nobody was really doing that. There was a very few people, like you had like Pope Runyon, but it was very frowned upon. And I had a lot of people get angry at me, people from magical orders, to be like, oh, like you shouldn't show people what it looks like to do all these rituals. But I just kept doing it because I didn't I wasn't beholden to anyone. So like there's really nothing wrong in me showing people what a ritual looks like, especially if it will help people learn how to do it properly in a way that is, you know, less uh, trying to figure it out on your own based on all the work I had done. And so, yeah, that's a still from a ritual. So, what I do is I will usually take a couple stills from the videos that I make of the different rituals. And sometimes I see some pretty cool stuff in them. Like my eyes will look all weird.
That's great. All right. And then I do have, I'm going to post this right here. This is your YouTube channel, youtube.com/Orlee Stewart. And the website is motherofabominations.com. And then we got a question from the chat. Hello, Orlee. My name is Multiple. I am from Chile, and I'm interested in having a session with you. How can I contact you?
Sure. So, thank you so much for asking. If you go on my website and in the section where it says Witchcraft and Tarot, you can go to where it says Readings and Consultations. And then you can pick if you wanted a tarot reading from me or if you wanted to just simply talk. And then you can pick a time on the schedule on the page in your time zone that works for you. Or we could do it via email if it's better to type it.
Well, very good.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any upcoming projects or anything else that you'd like people to know about?
Yes. So I have been working on a music project that came out at the end of April. It is basically like, obviously, you can see I take magic very seriously. And so I wanted to have a bit of a fun, kind of silly outlet for the witch edginess. So I created this music that's called Succubus Waifu, and you can also find it on my YouTube channel. It is horrorcore, hip hop, witch house music, and it's all kind of tongue in cheek rapping about being a witch and being a woman and that kind of stuff. I've been working on the music videos for it, and I do them all by myself. So it's quite a bit of work, but it's a huge labor of love. And so people can look forward to the second music video coming out within the next couple of weeks. And they can also listen to the full EP that's called Nightmare Baby on my channel, and it's available on all streaming music services as well.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I appreciate you spending this hour explaining what you do and where it's come from. I'll be honest, this is all very strange stuff to me, meaning that it's new to me. I grew up very conventionally, very, normal. I shouldn't say normal, but just very conventional. And so the interaction of me and magic, we did a ghost hunt a few months back, and the psychic who was on the hunt described me as a closed circuit. So I just say that I don't really have a lot of interaction with this kind of thing. So I find it very fascinating. I appreciate you coming and sharing it with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Make sure that you check out Orlee's YouTube page and her website, and follow her on all of the media that she has available. The music sounds fascinating. I got to listen to a bit of it before the show. It was very good.
Thank
you. Make sure that you comment, like, and subscribe on the channel if you want to see more content like this. And until next time, keep on exploring the edges of the unknown.